And I really hope, like you said, 5-10 years from now, hopefully it doesn't take that long, there is all of a sudden a governing body that changes all these things, where it's like, hey, NDAs are really bad for the athletes. That's why all the athletes need to come together and sign and say, hey, we're all a part of this. It all needs to be public so that we all benefit, even though it's going to be really embarrassing, you know what I mean? Like for some people, it's still going to be better. And there's so many different things you could go off of that within that player association, you know, where all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't pay someone less than this amount of money.
That was Sam Parsons, or as I like to call him, Sam Parsoni, today on the Running Effect podcast. Today's conversation is a special one because anytime I get Sam on the podcast, he's always so open, honest, and vulnerable, which always creates really thoughtful discussions around a plethora of topics. But today's conversation, and where it naturally went without us even planning on it going this direction, was the realm of contracts, which is something that doesn't get talked a lot about within the running world. Sam's contract with Adidas, who he's been with his whole professional career, was up at the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken. And so we talk about that world a lot in this conversation. Sam's future, his future with Tinman Elite, the future of Tinman Elite, which he is a co-founder of. And yeah, this conversation really centers around professional contracts, the structures, the incentives, why they aren't public, fixes we would make to them, a whole host of conversations around that topic. This one was really insightful, definitely off the map compared to most of my podcasts, but that's what made it really special. Sam always, as I said a minute ago, brings really thoughtful, honest, deep thoughts and wisdom to these sorts of subjects. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you're not familiar with Sam, he represents Germany on the global stage. He ran for NC State in college, where he had a very successful career, where he then went on to sign a professional contract with Adidas and co-found Tinman Elite. He's had a lot of success on the track, being a 3-time world championship qualifier, running 13:12 in the 5K, 7:39 in the 3K. I want to say 3:54 in the mile. Yeah, Sam's a great guy, truly on and off the track, amazing person, and I always love and am blessed by these conversations. If you do enjoy this one, share it with a friend, give us a 5-star review, hit the follow. I'd greatly appreciate those 3 things. Without further ado, enjoy this really thoughtful, deep, insightful conversation on professional running contracts and that whole world with the man, the myth, the legend, Sam Parsons. Ladies and gentlemen, on the other end, Mr. Sam Parsoni. Sam, how you doing this afternoon?
I think people are going to start thinking that my last name's actually Parsoni, especially the diehard Running Effect listeners. I feel like usually people mess up putting the S at the end. It's just Sam Parson. And it's good that the Italian mentors I've had that gave me that nickname over my internship at Adidas has now stuck and had a test of time now.
I love it. We're just going to dive head first because as a connoisseur of media and podcasts, and I hate when people waste 5 minutes of people's time at the beginning of stuff. Sam, what's the tea? What can you tell us? Where's Sam Parsons on January 20th, 2025? What's he thinking? What's going on?
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good. Mileage is up. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm a free agent, unsponsored, clean slate, left for dead, however you want to write it. And that's been a really interesting, scary, freeing, can use a lot of different adjectives to go along with that. Expected start to 2024. I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder. I feel like I'm excited for the freedom to wear whatever half tights and singlet, you know, like I have always wanted to be able to do that. I think Adidas has had some great kits over the years, but I've also had some absolutely horrendous ones. And I like self-expression through what you're wearing. So I'm excited for that aspect of it. Now I'm setting the bar high for me for what I actually start wearing when I race. But and yeah, a lot of stuff in flux with the team right now. A lot of guys signing individual contracts, still waiting on potentially an Adidas team deal. So yeah, a lot of stuff spinning right now.
What's the price to wear a Running Effect singlet if we make one public? Let's have the negotiations live.
Maybe
over
I should
under 20K per race.
Maybe I should put like a white singlet on eBay and be like, I'll put whatever you want on this, you know, as long as they let me race in it, you know. and see what we can get the number up to. Maybe that is how I'll change the game. But
What would be the price? Genuine question. Not holding you
Oh
to
yeah,
it.
that
Me or
yeah,
someone
no,
else.
that is a great question. I think it all depends on, as every contract, length of time, where I'm going, when I'm doing it, So it's like if we're talking like one-off BU 5K coming up, which is my next race. I just raced this past weekend at CU. Got, I can pull the old man 100-week no taper card, getting waxed by a couple of college guys running sub 4, or at least I'm going to. And I feel like that price tag would have been like, I would wear anyone's singlet for like, I don't know, $500, $300. I'll slap that on if it's like a good, decent enough singlet. BU 5K, trying to re-break the German record, probably good amount of headlines there. If I do that, with like some news outlets, especially across Germany, I'd probably up it to like one off, 2,500, 3K. If I'm just being straight up, yeah.
Now we're talking. Okay, I'm gonna call some people. I'm gonna get. I actually, there's this really cool. I love.
That was on the
conversations with you,
spot. That was
Sam.
on the spot thinking. I feel like I
This
should
could
have.
change. Yes,
I
I
feel like
agree.
I should have spent more time thinking about that, but that was on the spot.
Hey, until it's in paper, you're fine. People out there can make their bids, can make their offers, but you're the one with the pen at the end of the day. No, I love these conversations. We go deep quite frequently, but I also love the free flowing nature. So I'm going to bring up like a random point, give a shout out to these people. They reached Yassine Abdallah, the singlet he wore for the Olympics and the marathon. That kit was made by it's like 3 high schoolers, or they might be in college now.
Sick.
They just basically we're like, singlets are so bland and boring these days, and we want to create our own singlet company. So I actually think they're gonna make a singlet for the Running Effect at some point. So I'll get the check ready, Sam. You break a few records, and
yeah.
we'll up the price.
I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up right now.
It's Oasis Running is the name of it.
This is why we need to have like someone looking stuff up for us as in the podcast. Oh wow, yeah, that's a cool. Oh yeah, that is a cool singlet. Yeah, they did a great job with that.
So Running Effect singlet in the works, maybe. We'll see. We've talked about this, in all our conversations, the impact that you've had on Tinman, and even in your time working with Adidas, kind of being an OG person there. You even mentioned your internship with them way back in the start of this conversation. What are the feelings? Is it bittersweet? Is it sad? Is it happy about a new chapter? Where's your heart at these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there's always two sides of the coin, like there's the positive side of like, man, I'm just so incredibly grateful that I've had 8 amazing years with the company, supporting me, allowing me to have creative freedom, doing shoot collaborations together, empowering me to do a lot of really great things, giving me the freedom to literally do whatever I want on their product and send it to me. I guess within reason. There's definitely been some stuff that they've rejected and I've been upset with them. So there's so much love for the brand with Adidas, and I always will have an affinity with Adidas. I think I think if you were to like randomly poll like 50 people in the running world that like know of me in any shape or form, whether it's from like a really diehard fan, been with me since NC State days or whatever, to someone that just heard about me this past year, probably if there was like 3 words they would use, Adidas might be one of those words that they like came up with in like a focus group, So it is crazy to be like so deeply ingrained with a brand, wearing it, representing it, for so long, it's crazy to think about that. I've had Adidas product on my feet since I was 18 years old, and I've never worn anything else but that, like not even like secretly behind closed doors. Like I'm actually wearing like pegs because those are better for me, like a lot of other runners do, but on the flip side, there is a lot of frustrations too, like there was tons of times where I was like feeling like I'm running up a hill that I'm never going to get to the top of because of a lack of alignment, with what like my dreams were with Tinman Elite, and feeling like I could never reach those dreams without having a full on support system like an OAC, a Brooks Beasts, like a Houganet Elite has, to the point where if there's an NCAA athlete and the coach is like, this is our freaking guy, we need Joe Klecker and Alicia Monson, and whatever it takes, you need to get it so that we can really form this strong base. They're going to do it. And I felt like that is my biggest, will always be my greatest strife and frustration, is that Adidas always is so focused on their mission of two things, like winning medals at Olympic Games and um, selling super shoes and running shoes through winning marathon competitions. So they have the most Kenyans, Ethiopians signed to try to win those marathon podiums. That's their strategy, and they stick to their guns hard, and they will sign the big ticket athlete that's really young and hope they develop into that Olympic medalist on the distance side. But they never once tried to send any of those people, or we would send them lists every year like, hey, these are all the athletes we really love. And it was a really low bar. Like, the one guy I always think about is like Matt Wilkinson. The year before, like, he reached out to us, talked to us, good friends, interested. I don't think Under Armour paid him that much, and it was definitely, and I'm not going to disclose that for Matt's sake, but like, it was a contract that he has superseded probably 3x now with where he's at now in his career. And I'm sure he's getting paid great now, hopefully with rollovers and whatnot. But coming out of college, he was slept on, and I was like, this is a no brainer. Sign this guy. He's going to help revamp our program and keep it going for years and years to come. So, yeah, I hope I answered that pretty well. There's gives and takes for sure. Incredibly grateful, but for sure, some grievances. But I think nothing in life is perfect. I think there's rarely ever a situation like, even though I feel like the on OAC team has everything they could ever ask for with physios and support system and flying whenever they need to for training camps or whatever, they still have grievances, with this or that. But yeah.
A lot of people say that the sport is unforgiving, and I think that's a phrase that everyone can relate to, in the sense of injuries and setbacks and sicknesses and workouts that don't go well. When I talk to professional runners, though, I think there's a side that very few open up about, which is the side that you were just very open and honest about, which is it's also unforgiving on the professional contract side, which really never gets light shed on it. Even if you have a contract, you're probably not getting paid very much at all. It's wild the extent to which these contracts are so private, right? NFL, the reason I think contracts are so good is because one player can see another player signed for X amount, and then they know, oh, I'm better than that player, I'm going to ask for a specific amount. So can you speak more on that side of just the structure of the sport, the structure of contracts? And like, obviously I'm a Sam Parsoni, Sam Parsons fan, like through and through, love you to death on and off the track. But if I was just like analytical here, let's even take social media aside and what you've done with Tinman Elite aside. Like, you've made the world championships and represented Germany 2019, 2022, 2023. You've run 354, 739, 1312. If I'm a director of sports marketing, you're getting a call. Like, it's not like you're some mediocre guy who you're trying to make your case for a contract. It blows my mind. So, long rant there, but any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words there. You can take 15% of my next contract I get, if you can pitch that to the right. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Ray. Yeah. All right. Where to begin with that one? All right. So I guess I'd say first that, contracts are so hard to come by, just because it's a lot of it's right place at the right time. And I feel like I was able to live the lifestyle and able to like pursue this sport now for the past 8 years professionally because of the work I did with Tinman Elite. Like, my Adidas contract, I guess I should preface that with also saying that this is with the lifestyle that I wanted to live. I think that if I was okay with living in a house with 4 other guys, like I did when I first started with the team, and I was on a very small running contract, like under, 40K, and it was like, and hoping to hit bonuses to really make it. And with that, I think that the Tinman Elite money that we made, I was able to supplement my contract, with the work I was doing to live the lifestyle and actually make a living and actually have savings and actually do these things and go out to dinner and not have to think about it, book the right flight, not the red eye flight on the way back. And then you're recovering for your race, not actually recovering from your race. It's like, it's an uphill battle, and it's like fortunate that, I was able to get on a full ride later on in college, that I didn't have to accumulate this debt. It's all of these points of places of privilege, where I come from. Absolutely. To be able to even think about pursuing it. But I hustled for it also, like we worked very hard to build out the business of Tinman Elite in order to supplement our incomes as athletes, to make it enough. And the current landscape of the sport is changing so drastically in front of our eyes, where myself, like I'm a 30-year-old that just missed the Olympics, and that's not a great thing to have being said in like a marketing meeting. And I really hope that with the current fitness that I'm in, I can show people that that is purely just a sentence and nothing more, and not reflective of where I'm at or where I'm going to be this year. And then I am going to be worth every penny for any company that does decide to step up and have me rep them. The landscape of the sport is changing so drastically with the name, image, likeness, money that's being flooded in, because it's an amazing thing that these young kids in college can now get paid and get their likeness recognized. Like, I think it's an amazing thing, and I'll never be a detractor of that, even though it might be part of the effects of why I currently don't have exactly the deal that I've wanted, is because maybe a freshman or sophomore that could be an NCAA champion one day, has that, let's call it middle class professional runner contract of 50 to 60K. And right now it's so popular, and these companies, it's basically a necessity now for these companies to sign these young athletes, because they get that first right of refusal. And I think it's going to take a lot of Parker Valby situations for the situation to all of a sudden change, and all of a sudden be like, wait, it's not worth having an athlete maybe wear our spikes at an NCAA championship meet, and then they go on to sign with someone else. I think it's going to take a lot of I think that number of conversion rate, let's call it, of the Graham Blanks of he was with New Balance and then he signed with New Balance. Okay, that money we were paying him in college, probably worth it, because maybe Nike would have been able to come in and swoop him up from us. But there's not more money getting put into the market, so it's now spread out, not just with people that are post-collegiate. It's now all of the best collegiate kids and the current professionals. So I definitely think there'll be a dying off drastically of let's call it the middle class of professional distance running, of people that weren't NCAA champions, or people that are older. I think you're going to see lots of waves that we've already started to see it, and I think it's only going to become more and more prevalent until there's more money in the sport, or until something changes where they don't see the value in signing those younger kids at that point in time anymore.
Let's talk about an elephant in the room that you're probably not even thinking about, but I think a lot about it as a fan of this sport. And just blanket statement, I never think doping is okay ever underneath any circumstance. But when you explain the realities of the sport that I think a lot of people are unaware of, that there are contracts out there that athletes only make $40,000 a year or less in some scenarios that I've heard about privately. And then there are these contract incentives and bonuses if you run certain times. People's livelihoods are a little bit at stake, and they are kind of riding this fine line, fine dream. And in America, we're super privileged with the systems and setup that we have. You take it to, these East African countries where the difference between running a fast marathon and performing well at it and not is like your family eating sometimes. And again, never justifying doping. I don't think it's ever okay. But I think also from a doping perspective, the structures of contracts and how little we pay people and also incentivize people for doing really, really well, I think a lot of doping stems from that. I'm not sure if you agree with that statement, but I think the incentives in the sport are completely off from the perspective
Mm,
of the company, and it almost encourages people to take shortcuts because it's like if you don't run fast enough, you're barely going to make enough money, to make it. And
totally,
yeah,
totally. I mean, like,
athletes want to chase the professional dream, like they were.
totally.
Yeah,
Like I was alluding to with that contract, it's like, yeah, like the base was under 40K, and it's like, but I had a lot of really good bonuses where I could, double my salary that year if I hit them, and all of a sudden it was an 80K contract or a 90K contract if I had a really good year and I was top ranked in this, or I made this standard, or, it's like, it was really great. But then there was years where I had half of an Achilles and I didn't make any of those bonuses and it was miserable. And all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, things are really tight now. Um, and I think that the thing I always tell younger kids, because I feel like that's always like whenever we do community runs, like with the team or after races, whenever I get any time with someone, I feel like for whatever reason, doping is such a topic that they're so enthralled by and like interested in, because it's
kids
like,
love it.
I've raced these dopers, you know what I mean? Like I have so many pictures with me next to people that are either currently suspended or were suspended, um, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, these are not bad people. And I think
Hmm.
that's the thing people don't realize is like when they associate someone like doping, they associate just like this awful criminal. Like, it's like, no, you can be a very somehow moral person, like sound of mind, reasonable, polite, empathetic, and want to take drugs because you'll hit your bonuses and improve your performance, and you're so competitive that you're willing to do it and risk it, for that stuff. And that's, once again, me not justifying at all. I remember after I missed like my first world championship final, I think I might have said this on one of your podcasts, but like I was so mad afterwards. I was like furious. I was like, or no, it was after I made the final in Eugene, and like I got dropped, I got like destroyed, and I was like in the best shape of my life. Like I'm feeling so good, like riding this high, and like I got dropped, and I was like, just to like a small, I forget who it was, like some German like news outlets. Um, and I was like, yeah, well, maybe I'm sixth in the world today. If you take out like the dopers in the race, or like people that are like actually clean people, maybe I'm top five. Who knows? Um, because I was so mad, just because I was like, no way all these guys could recover that. And like in reality, maybe they're all clean. Who knows? But um, yeah, I'm all over the place now. Sorry, I'm off the
No,
rails.
it's good. On the moral comment, my parents taught me, my mom specifically, great thing growing up, which is like there aren't bad people. They're just people who do bad things.
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
doping is one of those
That's
things.
such a more eloquent way to do it. That's why you're good at your job.
Go, Mr. Schleter. Love to death. I guess off of that, another point I wanted to bring up, and if someone from Adidas wants to fact check me here, please do so. But like Yomif Kajelcha, one of the greatest athletes in the world at the moment, that guy's not selling shoes. I firmly believe that any American high schooler could give two shits about that guy.
I do.
Pardon my French.
I do have some good stats. I do think of like
Just
the
real quick.
sales. Yeah.
Yeah, just finishing that thought. I just went on your YouTube channel. Total views over the years, 9 million. I know the impact, or at least you probably don't even know the full extent of impact of the brand awareness that Tinman Elite has created, specifically within a younger community who is constantly buying running shoes. I'm getting heated. Constantly buying running shoes. And they think of Adidas first and foremost because they see it on Sam Parsons' feet and Drew Hunter's feet. And stories sell shoes, and you guys tell stories better than almost anyone in the sport. But yet, almost all the money is going to people like Yomif and hundreds of other Africans that literally no Americans know, other than the time they ran at some marathon, and they get one post from Citius Mag once a year, and that's it. That's not going to sell shoes. Tinman Elite will. So, yeah, any thoughts on that? And just also like how storytelling and people who do have big platforms and tell stories well should be positively incentivized for those sort of things. And also the other layer here, it's not like you're slow. Like, love Spencer Brown to death, but that guy's not gonna make a world championships team ever. Like, you're doing both. You're telling stories and you're running fast, and that's a rare combo.
Cheers, Dom. I really appreciate that. You're really putting in a great bid here to become my agent. You're doing a great job. um, no, once again, I really appreciate the kind words. We did all that stuff never with the intent to ever sell anything. It was always at the heart of it was always, and I think that's the thing people just can easily give Tinman Elite shit for is just like, oh, they're just trying to like make money and sell stuff. You know what I mean? It's like we never started it to like be like, okay, we're starting this so that we can like sell millions, you know what I mean? Or we can make our own shoe with Adidas. Like we never thought we would do any of that. That was zero inspiration. It was like we started it because we thought that there was this huge gap in the sport that at the time in 2018, 2017, it was like, what the hell is Bowerman doing? Like, I wish I could see a workout with Evan and those guys so badly. Like, can't I see that? Or like anybody, you know what I mean? It was like flow track workout Wednesdays. And like, that was it for me, like that was the only little taste I ever got was like those driven series. It was like heaven for me where all of a sudden I was like, Cam Levins is doing triples. Like, yes, dude. Um, and I was like, why don't we just do that every single week and show people constantly? And whenever we run a fast rep, someone's filming it. And then we talk afterwards about how we felt, just let's share everything, the good and the bad. And that was always the intent to hopefully bridge that gap between us and that next generation. And it's very freaking cool. And I have these moments and like, I wear my emotions on my sleeve for better or worse. And I have these moments, where I take a step back and I realize like, wow, that was so cool. Was like when I see someone that's now after college that's running their first marathon and they're coming up to us at these races and they're like, hey dude, like I was in high school when I first started watching your videos, like just ran my first marathon. And it's like, these people grew up with us, and that's the stuff where I'm like, oh, it gives me chills, or I'm like, that's really, really cool to know that there's this community out there that all, we grew up together, like literally, which is really cool. And I'm sure you're going to have that same experience, over the years, people that remember your first pods and remember the first time and all that. And then they get to meet you. Like that's the bread, that's the bread
That's
and
why I do
butter.
it.
Like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's the coolest parts. Yeah.
On the note of selling things, just stream of consciousness here. People in the running world love the running world. It's like been in it since the age of 5. Been running since the age of 5. Love running. It's my first love. But some people are just not smart. Like, and I think very, very in like this niche. Like, go read any book on marketing or listen to any top 50 business podcast. When you have an audience and when you grow an audience, you sell things. It makes sense to do. That's why it's called a business. And like, if you have a massive audience, like granted, I haven't like sold anything really yet. Will I make merch one day? Absolutely. Will I like branch in all these different separate venues? Absolutely. Because that's what a business is. And that's what a business does. Just like when you go on Amazon, they're selling things like, and it always frustrates me, but also makes me laugh of just like people who do ad reads or promote things. It's like, they don't hate you if you don't buy it. And that's not the point. It's for those people who are interested in running their first 5K and they're like, I trust Sam, I'm going to buy his training plan. And wow, what a beautiful transaction there where they get to have a good training plan and race a 5K from one of their favorite athletes.
Yeah.
Like, how is that bad in any sense? And yes, if we did a 45-minute podcast and we're promoting something the whole time, probably not the best look. But also, again, the internet is so large and vast that even if that was the case, which it'll never be on this podcast anyway, like, just stop listening and who cares? Like, go listen to another podcast. Go, like, there's so many other good podcasts or pieces of content. And that's why I always laugh with like, I mean, I get as do you. So we're kind of in the same boat here and I don't really read it anymore, but occasionally friends will pass on stuff from Let's Run. And it's like, you hate my podcast? Great. Go listen to another one. Like, yeah, I don't really care that you hate it.
I've been, I think it was like around 2019. It was like right when I felt like I started to be a pro runner, where I felt like I really was hitting my stride. Tinman Elite, was really catching momentum. Like, and I remember at that point, I remember like reading like a Let's Run thread, and it just destroyed me. Like, it just like put me down to the dumps. And I was like, wait, why did I just do that to myself? Like I'm like PRing in every race, like I'm working my ass off day in and day out to like launch this business. And then I just let these random people pull me down and be like, "Oh yeah, I do suck," you know? Um, and I remember after that, I was like, "Man, I'm never gonna let the like outside voices, I think it's good to have your bubble popped. I think it's good to get criticism. Like I truly do think it's good to like get out of your shell and realize like, oh, maybe I do sound bad, or maybe I do need to change this, or like I think it's good to take criticism, but I think it's awful to let it define you and let it really dictate you, or change like your core values if those values are true. And I think that was the biggest learning experience. But I did recently, just because of all this stuff going on with our team right now, like came up on a run, like some Let's Run thread, and like my classic, yeah, well, Sam's been living off his family's hedge fund for all these years professionally. And I'm just like, where is that hedge fund? And I just got such a kick out of it again. I'm like, I could really use that right now, like as an unsponsored athlete, to kind of like maybe pull some money out of that and keep me going for another year. Because if I don't, like I'll certainly be done in the sport quicker than I thought. But at the same time, like I'm at the point now, not to change gears too much, but I'm at the point now where I feel like I've learned so much with launching community events, with marketing, with managing budgets, with full creative rollouts, storytelling, that I have a lot to offer a brand or a company, or
Oh, you could
maybe,
get a job in 2 seconds.
maybe I'll just do it myself, again, who knows? And I'm not saying I'm done with Tinman Elite. Like I'll always continue my work with Tinman Elite. Maybe not to the same degree as I did in the past, but like I will always be on the board as a founder, and I will always be working on that. Like that will always be, an olive branch relationship to whatever degree, which I still don't know what it's going to be, which is crazy. I wish I had more clarity on it, but I don't. Um, but I feel like I would be silly to just run. You know what I mean? Like that seems like crazy to me, to be like at my age, to have this skill set and like the things that I do know how to do successfully, that I have the return on investment analytics, to prove that I can do this successfully over a long period of time and in a sustainable way. Um, that I would love to be able to have the opportunity to run and work for a company. And I think that's a crazy concept, that it's like, why are more people not doing that? Because I think it is the situation where it's like way too many pros are, because you have to be, because of how competitive it is, be so dialed in. And if I'm being brutally, brutally honest with myself, I think this past Olympic year, and even in the past few years, like I've even taken steps back from like how much day-to-day work I do on Tinman Elite from what I used to do, and given that work to other people. And I think that's hurt, Tinman Elite in a way that I just wanted to be a pro runner, and then when it was time for me to really sink my teeth into, okay, this is this rollout we're going to do, build out a lookbook or whatever, then execute it. But I should have kept doing more, I think, for sure. And that's not a regret, because if I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have seen if I could have made another huge jump in running. But it seems crazy, back to my main point, it seems crazy to me at this point, not to also, if I'm going to run for a company, utilize also the things I can also offer, like get me into product development. Like I can help you develop a shoe better, like get me in a creative team. I can be a Swiss Army knife. And that's kind of like my elevator pitch, I guess, if I had one to give to a company. It's like, I hope that, and I'm going to be patient for sure. Like I'm not just going to jump into like the first opportunity. I've already had great conversations with different companies, but I'm definitely going to be patient in terms of like what I feel like is best and at the right time to
I
balance
think
all
that,
that.
yeah, I think the tricky thing there is, um, life is not all about money, for sure not. But I think it's a healthy desire to want to make a good amount to provide for your family and friends and future kids, grandkids, and
I got a
to live a
wedding to
nice
plan.
life.
I got a
Exactly. Yeah.
sheesh,
Hey, congrats
bro.
about that, by the way.
Thank you
Forgot
so
to.
much.
He's
Thank
an
you.
engaged man.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
But I think that within two problems with these companies, of which I love many of the companies and the impacts they have on the sport, absolutely remarkable. But it's such bureaucracy, right? Even when I work with specific companies, it's like I have to talk to so and so who has to talk to so and so, and it's like, oh my gosh, like who are the decision makers here? Such bureaucracy that every department and every one of these companies, for the most part, I definitely have some different experiences with specific brands. So one, that, and then two, I'm just like realizing that you can't really make money in the like significant money if you're a part of a company, unless you're like so basically I think the entrepreneurial, like, yes, there are so many falsehoods about like owning your own company and like the freedom and it's like you have no days off if you own something. No days off. I don't take Christmas. Like, yes, I have more step away days, but that's pretty non-existent. Summing up this rant here because I'm going off on too many tangents. Basically, bureaucracy, one, and then two, I think that the separate thing is just it's very actually hard to make meaningful income within these companies, which is why I
Yes.
always tell younger people, like, at most, there's some stat out there on millionaires, but yeah, most are not like you just join a 9 to 5 and you can make decent money, but you're never really going to
Because you're
make something.
replaceable, right? Like that's like
Exactly.
that's like the bottom line, right? It's like, hey, it's not worth continuing to raise your bonuses 10K, 20K every single year when we could just hire another 26-year-old that's really excited about wanting to work for us and would do it for next to nothing just because they need the opportunity
Yes.
to start their LinkedIn resume. And yeah, you're right with that. And I think another reason, the biggest thing I think I've learned over the years with working with these companies is like no one wants to get fired. You know what I mean? Like that's the other thing I always need to like remind myself is like at the end of the day, a lot of these people, because it's not theirs, you know what I mean? It's like, I guess we've talked about Adidas, so I'll just use Adidas as like the place card holder, even though this is not about them specifically. Um, no, just kidding. Is that no one wants to get fired. You know what I mean? So like everyone's doing their job for what they're being told. You know what I mean? And to all of a sudden like take a risk and like do a really crazy marketing campaign or something that would probably really excite people to see, um, it's not worth it. You know what I mean? It's like at the end of the day, that person that is signing Adidas athletes needs to tell their boss, we had this many people on podiums at marathon championships. We had this many medalists this year. Like that's their stats to keep their jobs, you know? And like that's what their bosses are telling them. So even if they want to sign Tinman Elite, you know, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt where it's like they are like, yeah, you're right. 9 million views over all these years, you know, like we've seen their shoe sales when we did it with them firsthand. Like we know they're worth every penny. Um, but that's not a part of our mission right now that my boss is telling me. And we don't have the budget for it if we sign gout, you know, or whatever. So it's like, it is bureaucracy, but it's everyone staying in line, you know, and that's the nature of these big companies. And that's where I think I enjoyed the most with Tinman Elite. And when you are starting your own small business, you can do whatever you want, you know, and you can take risks. And if you fail, it's like, who really cares, you know? And that was the same thing with Tinman Elite is like, we started like paying so many different salaries and it's like, okay, we need to hit this amount of sales every year. It's like we became that too. And that's the natural evolution of any business where it's like all of a sudden I wasn't making or selling the stuff I really loved or wanted to do or like roll out this new logo design where I'm like, no. Like I need to, this collection has to be 50K in Q3 or else these people aren't getting paid their full salaries. And that's a scary thing. All of a sudden have that responsibility. And there's this fear factor that all of a sudden drives decision making, which I think leads to stagnation. Yeah.
Going back a little bit, two questions for you. One, what's the future of Tinman Elite? And two, would you take a independent contract from a different company that wasn't Adidas?
I think the future of Tinman Elite right now is going to be um, a team boss situation where I think there's going to be a lot of individual athletes that either join the team in the future because of a contract that they signed and they want to be in Boulder and they want to train with Reed Fisher or Sam or whoever, you know, like they want to be around Joey and they want to do steeplechase with Joey. I think that situation, if I just had to be totally honest, and I think that I really want to be able to do like collaborations, you know what I mean? Where it's like we have this freedom now. And if there are athletes with this brand and this brand and this brand, we can work with any one of those brands if we have complete control of our logos and licensing, like which we do. Or it's if it's like a VPN, you know, like we've talked about before we started this podcast, you know, like if they wanted to do a Chicago pop up with us, you know, and they wanted to do put our logo with theirs on a box, you know, to do a full rollout promotion, you know, and we do a run together and we wear their kits, like the unsponsored people on our team, let's say. Like that's stuff we can do, you know, and I think that we need to be flexible where it's like there is this new world of running that's happening. And it's like, look, we tried really hard to stay all together and stay united under one brand. And that was an incredibly, incredibly hard thing to do. And there's just so many moving parts, you know, like you said, Tinman Elite is so many different things now when it comes to like our training platform side, the product side, how much that's worth, and then how much each individual athlete then is worth. You know, it's like it adds up quick, you know, paying the coaches, doing all these things, paying a marketing team. So it's like to all of a sudden have a brand go all in on that when their plans were already this going into the new year, or they've already signed Parker Valby. You know, it's like it's very hard to then all of a sudden be like, oh wait, we should actually do this too, and have the budget for it. So I think the future of Tinman Elite is hopefully that we're all going to stay together. We're going to have much more dynamic media content when it comes to what we talk about with any brand that we're wearing or any review that we ever do for anyone. Like the only contract that I know 100% that we do have going into the future is with Koros. And we'll continue to work with Koros, and we're incredibly grateful for them to kind of have a sponsor still holding us and uniting us, you know, because I think that is really important. And I do hope we can continue to hustle and work and hopefully get outside sponsors. Like, I don't know, like I always dream about United Airlines, you know, like we get United Airlines to
Get a
sponsor us,
PJ
you
in
know,
Boulder, baby.
not even that, but just like I see their advertisements they do right now, and I'm like, oh man, we could do such good work, like traveling to races together and showcasing this amazing experience that we have with them. Like I think it would just be an amazing. I think we would do great marketing and projects for them really at the ground level, and their United hub is in Denver, so it just makes all the sense in the world. But getting those contacts and all that stuff, you
Dude,
know,
the executives listen to this podcast actually, so hit up
hell
Sam.
yes. Well, I don't even need to do my pitch now that I
No, I'm
wasted
joking.
5 minutes on your
Maybe. You
pod
never
on
know.
it.
I will say, you never know who's listening. And I've been shocked over the years with, even like those 9 million views on the YouTube channel, you'd probably be shocked at some of the names who have come across videos.
Yeah, who
And
knows?
I
Who
think
knows?
anytime someone reaches out to you or comes up to you in person, there's probably like 10, 20, 50 people who feel that exact same way, who just didn't have the guts to come out to you or reach
Yeah.
out to you or whatever it might be. So
Dom, I
I've
think we
always been
set the
shocked.
record for most time spent not talking about running on this running podcast. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we talked about a single workout or race or anything for an entire hour now, which is
I've had
fine,
some.
but I don't know if anyone's listening anymore.
No, here's the
All
thing.
right, guys,
People
double
are
threshold training.
Sam's lactic level is at 2.7 when he goes
Yes,
at X amount of pace.
there
No,
you
I think
go.
people love this world. And I think a lot of times podcasts specifically get so stale with that sort of info. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there'll be a next podcast that we'll actually laugh about and be like, tell me the double threshold splits. There's a time and a place for that. But I think, taking advantage of your openness to share about this world, that's truly, even for you, when was the last time you heard someone like really openly, honestly talk about professional contracts and their experience with it? Can you remember a time on a podcast?
I did not on a podcast per se, but I did love recently the Runner's World article. I don't know if you read it. I'll send it to you after this because you'd love it. Where they basically interviewed, and it was bashing agents, to be honest. Like it definitely was really harsh on agents and like what they do for the sport and how more and more athletes are going without agents. And they interview a lot of athletes that have left their agent and do it on their own now. And they interviewed like Parker Valby's dad, Olivia Markevich's dad, who kind of like helped them with their contract negotiations and like when they were in college and then transitioning and stuff. And I think it's one of these things where I'm like, every college kid should read this for at least the
Mm.
perspective. I'm not saying everything that was said in that article was exactly right, but I think it was a very honest approach to it. And I'm like, man, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was coming out of college, and um, it's definitely a wealth of information that I think
Yeah.
people don't
I,
talk about. So kudos to whoever
I
wrote
think,
that. I should know that to just shout them out.
yeah. I think that I can link it in the show notes for people interested in reading that. I think there are definitely agents within the sport who do amazing work. And I think most people generally in the world who are good people, which I genuinely believe is most of the world, like they do the best with what they know and what they have. And again, I think the structure of the sport makes it very hard for them to operate. But I hear about some of these contracts behind closed doors, and I'm just like, I don't I don't necessarily think it's a lack of passion for the athlete, but I think some of these agents just genuinely aren't that good at business, which is, I know, such a stretch as someone who's never negotiated a contract. And it would take
No, that's
quite
not
the
true.
effort.
Come on.
You don't think so?
No, I'm saying you have done your own contracts. That's not true. I know
Oh,
this.
that
We've
is true.
talked about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, that is true. But I've never negotiated someone else's contract for them.
It's not that
Nor do I
different.
really want
Not
to.
that different.
Yeah, yeah. But what I'll say is, it, if all the athletes in the sport just were like, none of us were just unanimously agreeing to not sign, no one's has a contract under $100,000. Companies would panic, but they would adjust. Look how much On is worth. Look how much Hoka is worth. Look how much Nike is worth. They have the money. They 100% have the money. And I think it's just an issue of athletes and agents and coaches, quite frankly, not having the business acumen to properly illustrate their worth. And because we've always done this system, I think it's going to change. I think in 5 years, this conversation is going to be entirely different because more and more situations like yours are popping up. But I think it's just this, like, I'm trying to think if I was an athlete, like how I would go about it. And I don't think I would do the cookie cutter agent approach. And specifically too, like I just, in this position, I hear a lot of things behind closed doors in private rooms, and like agents, they like talk about, not every agent, but there are definitely agents out there that I think will talk to, they're in with certain brands and like everyone has a
Oh
handshake deal with
yeah, of
everyone.
course.
And I
Oh
think
yeah,
just do things not always in the best interest of the athlete, which is
it's
unfortunate.
an it is an old boys club in the sense that all of these people know each other so well, you know? It's like the same thing where it's like if I decide to stay in the sport and Kyle Merber ends up here, you know, at this position, and I end up as head of sports marketing at Hoka after 20 years of working in the industry, and Kyle Merber hits me up and he's like, "Hey, there's this kid, let's sign him." And it's like, "Yeah, bro, like we went to training camp together in Scottsdale. Like we used to race together. Like we're friends. We used to be colleagues, you know, like we've laughed, we've drank together, and it's like we've grown up in the sport together. Now let's do the things we want, you know. And that's, I think, a lot of the situation that you find where it's like these meet directors, these agents, the heads of marketing at these different places are just such good friends after such a long time that they're willing to do, let's call it favors. And this goes back to what we talked about before. It's like right place at the right time, you know. So it's like if you want to join an Under Armour team and you want to be this place, yeah, you should probably sign with maybe Stephen Haas, you know, because he has such good relationships with them. Where it's like, hey, if you think you're, let's use Hobbs Kessler as an example, where it's like if you're Hobbs Kessler and you think that Adidas is going to be interested, like you should probably sign with Mark Wetmore because he's really close friends with the Adidas people and can get you a huge contract, you know. Or if you really want to join OAC, probably should sign with Ray Flynn. Like he signed over 80% of their athletes, you know, to On. So it's like, yeah, there for sure are these strings that live in this sport. And I think athletes are I think that's one thing that athletes really do understand. But yeah, I'm incredibly open in terms of like whenever there's an athlete that like talks to me, even this weekend, like the kid, so bad with names, Reese, the kid who just broke the Colorado soil record this weekend in the race I was with. He runs for like CSU Pueblo, and he's from the UK. And like after the race, we like ended up talking for like a little bit, and it's like, dude, he didn't know anything. You know what I mean? Like he didn't know any agent, he didn't know any people. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm just like, man, like here's my number. Like if you have any questions, just let me know. like you're really good, like, and you're only gonna get better. And like if you had a shot at running at Milrose games, you would probably run 350 right now. Like it's so I think it is up to the older people within the sport like myself to be a resource of information for these younger athletes, and anyone that's gatekeeping, like that sucks because
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
yeah, if you can't be happy with the situations that you have been able to give and then help others along the way, like, yeah, not great. But
Yeah, I also appreciate the perspective there because I think you're so right on the relationships are so natural as humans. And Sam, if you texted me and were like, hey, get so-and-so on the podcast, I think they'd make for a great conversation. 100% I would do it as opposed to some random DM that I get telling me to get on their high school buddy who I don't know.
right.
So yes, I do think that's actually a massively important thing to acknowledge and realize that naturally these relationships are going to pop up between agents and brands. I guess where I come from is just I'm a big Pat McAfee watcher. I'm a big studier of other sports and like how are these sports doing so well and running's relatively behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've studied recently football agents and specifically NIL agents and how they negotiate contracts. And I'm just like, you guys blow anyone I've ever heard from the running world away of how you negotiated that. Because the cool thing is everything's public. So you can hear, oh, this brand offered this deal and here's the conversation I had. And so, yeah, that's all I'll say there is just like, I've studied other sports and it seems that the agents there like could care less about which brand. And they just almost have this like big alpha kingpin mentality that's just the agents run everything. And I honestly think it's good for those sports because they get wild contracts for the athlete.
The crazy thing I think that upsets me the most, Dom, is that, and I think Christian Taylor and a few other people tried to start it a few years ago, and I was so excited, and then it just kind of like fizzled out and I never heard anything about it again. But the fact that there's not a players association, that the NFL has, where it's like if a player gets injured, you know what I mean, and the team then cuts that like athlete off their roster or something, like the Players Association has a whole team of lawyers and people that are going to go to bat for that athlete, because they're a part of this Players Association. And the fact that running doesn't have one sucks so bad. Like there should be an entire business governed body. And I really hope, like you said, like 5-10 years from now, hopefully it doesn't take that long. There is all of a sudden a governing body where that changes all these things, where it's like, hey, NDAs are really bad for the athletes. That's why all the athletes need to come together and sign and say, hey, we're all a part of this. It all needs to be public so that we all benefit, even though it's going to be really embarrassing, you know what I mean? Like for some people, it's still going to be better, for the long term. And there's so many different things you could go off of that within that player association, where all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't pay someone less than this amount of money if they're running in your shoe. It's like there's a veteran minimum, there's a rookie minimum, there's signing bonuses, there's like all of these things that all of a sudden like are not just really great because a brand decided to do that in that contract. It's the standard, or it's like you cannot reduce an athlete for more than this much over this amount of time, like all of these things, would benefit from a players association. But it's so hard to get everyone on the same page with that stuff without having like a true governing body behind it. So unless World Athletics or someone steps up to start that for the athletes.
Yeah, we don't need World Athletics to start. That would be a horror
I don't know
show.
if it'll ever actually happen.
They would throw someone as like head chair of that committee and they'd start making wild decisions. Come on.
Yeah,
Nothing
the head of the
but
Players Association would start making like $2 million a year, and like
and be like directly connected to Nike, and somehow we'd have to go to Hayward Field for meetings.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have like Joey Barriatua who would like go to the nail representing a company like on food stamps, like making like no money. You know what I mean? It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, totally. Shifting subjects, closing this conversation out, actually talking about running. So take me through the race this past weekend, kind of your current mindset, goals for 2025, and how much do you feel of what was discussed today has given you a chip on your shoulder heading into this season?
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I don't want to go into race this year with this mentality where it's like, this is it, I need to prove myself, because like that leads to failure, I think, more often than not. And I think we've had this conversation many times now where it's like, going to races with this sense of opportunity instead of expectation is the holy grail of finding success in the sport. Going into it, I have this amazing opportunity to prove myself to the world that I am not done. And missing the Olympics by 3 or 4 spots, whatever it ended up being, will not define me, and any type of failure or setback that I thought was going to be career defining, I'm not going to let define me. And those are points of excitement that I need to go into these races with. But I'll tell you what, in 2023, I ran 4 flat, and then I followed up with an 8:16 3K afterwards, and I was cooked after both of those races. Like, I was so tired. And this year I finished a 99-mile week last week and finished it on Saturday. I ran 4 flat again at CU, and then I ran 8:13 in a 3K. And both of those races, I was so in control. Maybe I didn't have crazy gears to really turn the legs over, but man, I felt so strong and in control, and never felt like I was gasping for air or legs just going completely lactic too early. And then I did 5 by K after those races on the treadmill, like 4:45 pace. And I just clicked it off like it was nothing, all at altitude. And after those races in 2023, I went on and PR'd 13:12 in the 5K, 7:39 the following weekend at Millrose. And I think I'm in a better spot than I was then, in terms of my strength and my knowledge and understanding of what it takes to actually run those times and run even faster. So I think I have a lot of really great opportunity to run really fast in front of me. And I think that with this, let's call it new sense of freedom, and maybe some Nike spikes on my feet, will give me a nice, it's so funny.
You're
So
terrible.
It's so weird, bro. It's so weird to put Nike spikes on. But they were so nice. I wore them for the first time this weekend. I was like, oh, I get it. I get why everyone is like, yeah, this is great, but yeah, want to break records. I want to break the German 5K indoor record again. I want to break the German indoor 3K record this indoor season. I have really high goals and dreams, but they're short term, right? Like, I would love to be in Tokyo. I'd love for Tokyo to maybe be even my track curtain call, where that's like, hey, this is my last track race. And then I go on and actually do some really fun races. Like, I want to go to Valencia and rip on the roads. Like, that looks sick. So there is a lot of things there, and I'm running like 100+ mile weeks, and I never, ever, ever thought my body would ever be able to handle that type of volume. So yes, I might have that initial tagline in a marketing meeting that a lot of brands, which already have passed up on me because they see, oh yeah, Sam missed Olympics, he's 30, he's done a lot of great marketing and he has a good presence, on social media or pull or whatever, still not worth it, for the next 4 years or however long they deem necessary. Like, I think that I'll say I know that I'll be able to do some really special things, and hopefully make people reconsider those decisions that maybe some of them have already made. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So I'm at peace, and I'm really looking forward to showcasing that on race day, because at the end of the day, it's easy to talk about wanting to do all these things. A lot harder to do it on the right day, stay healthy and get it and have all the cards fall. But I've been playing with cards for a while now, so hopefully I'll be able to
love it.
put
He's
it
back,
together.
Baby. He's back, baby. He's back. You're a Parsoni on tap. I know you got to run here in a minute. So ending on a light note, recently engaged, as we mentioned, mid-conversation. Heart rate higher during double threshold, or like the minute leading up to proposing, getting on one knee?
I tell you what, my legs, like, I took one moment, and it's funny because my fiance, she actually took a picture of me because there was like seals in the water, and she was like, oh, there's like seals behind you, Sam. She started like taking pictures of me standing there after we were sitting together on this rock. And then once I got down on one knee, and I had a few things prepared, and I got to like maybe like the second sentence, third sentence, and I started stumbling and fumbling, and I just remember feeling like my legs just like shaking like a leaf, you know what I mean? And I was like, whoa, this is heavy business right now. And it's a beautiful thing, and I get it. like it is a big moment. It's a huge commitment. Best decision I've ever made for sure. And brought me endless happiness. And I'll never forget, just because this is a running podcast, I'll mention this part of the story. The run the next morning, maybe the best run of my life. Maybe the best run of my life was like, woke up, went just like 5 miles up the coast, in this beautiful place in LA, up by the cliff sides, and 5 miles of just smiling ear to ear like a buffoon, just being like, wow, like
Oh, I love
this
that.
is a powerful feeling for sure. Yeah, love was real for sure in that moment.
RIP every single person listening to this. Stay in there, hang in there. Your time will come.
Hey, I didn't have like any girlfriends ever, so Morgan's like my first like actual girlfriend.
Really?
So, oh yeah,
One and done, baby.
um,
Let's go.
that's right, that's right. She whipped me into shape, and best thing that's ever happened to me.
Amazing. Birds by how many this weekend? Final question.
Oh man, I think it's gonna just be an absolute bloodbath shootout, like every playoff game is. So I'm gonna go Birds, come from behind, last minute field goal, absolute heartbreaker for the Commanders. But we're 9-0 in the link, and we have the number one defense in the league, and we have Saquon Barkley to everyone jump on his back. So I think that is the recipe for success in the playoffs, and I think we have everything it takes. And I just really hope the Bills take care of the Chiefs, because I do not want to see the Chiefs
Chiefs or
again in the
refs?
Super Bowl. Yeah, I don't want to see
The
the
Chiefs or the
Chiefs.
refs?
I don't like the Bills. Like whatever NFL script is out there, you need to let the Bills win this one. They have paid their dues. They have lost the most
Agreed.
heartbreaking games of all time I've ever watched. Like I have no love actually for the Bills outside of like watching these heartbreaking things happen to them and being like, "Oh my gosh, like this is such a good team," and somehow Patrick Mahomes fiddled his way through this to get a win, and they need to do it. Like the NFL needs to
I
come
don't.
together and say, "This is
I
your
agree.
guys' year. Just take it."
I don't have love for the Bills. I have hate for the Chiefs, and I'm a good person, so I search deep within my heart to find out where that hate comes from. I just can't stand them. I can't
It's
stand them. I don't
crazy.
like
I
Patrick
think
Mahomes.
that is the greatest uniter. Is I think every NFL team, like yes, a lot of people hate the Eagles, and trust me, there are times where even this weekend we had our field goal kicker. We had our field goal kicker make 3 field goals in the snow, but he missed both point after attempts. And on his interview, when they're interviewing after the game, the stadium starts booing him. And I'm like, you guys, we would have lost this game if this guy wouldn't have made a 44-yarder in a blizzard. Like, you idiots. And it's just like I hate Eagles fans. It's like, or when they start like booing when we're like up by like 10, but they're like playing poorly. I'm like, this team needs like some rah rah. Like, where's the skull
Right.
chants when we're down by 14? It's like,
Dude, trust me, I'm an Ohio State
gosh,
fan. We have the worst fans of any sports base out there,
brutal,
100%.
man,
Can't
brutal.
get behind. Yeah.
I saw,
Anyways, you got to
yeah,
run. You got to run literally. We'll run it back on the
oh yeah.
podcast soon. Yeah, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate all you do for the sport and always being so honest and vulnerable in our conversations. I know it impacts so many people, and I know this conversation will be no different. So keep up the amazing work. I'll get you back on the podcast soon to actually discuss running, but glad we went in this direction today and know it'll bless a lot of people.
Yeah, maybe next time on the pod we'll be talking about this new brand opportunity job that I'm in and discussing that. Who knows? Maybe
Let's go, baby.
that's in the future, but appreciate you giving me the platform to speak on all this stuff. That's a beautiful thing to give to people, and I appreciate you very much for it. So keep doing what you're doing, Dom. You're crushing it.